Well, hello friends, and welcome back to a new episode of the TypeScript Tea Time. I'm your host Mirko, and hope you're having an awesome day today. Happy New Year, everybody. At least in the Western calendars, because there are still some calendars like the lunar calendar. Chinese New Year is still like 2 months, right? 1.5 months. Anyway, Happy New Year to everybody using a Western calendar. And also to those who don't, in a sense. Today we are going to continue a bit, ever so slightly, on the Godot game that I've developed for the last game jam, Godot World Jam, which has ended, by the way. And so maybe we first look at the game, and then we look at the Godot World Jam 52h.0. which we hopefully find. There it is. So this is a little game jam that I've joined because recently I've been doing some Godot game development. We did a lot of TypeScript, Phaser.js, so JavaScript. JavaScript development in the browser. Godot can pretty much do that as well, kind of, although it's kind of buggy, I already noticed, unfortunately, with my first title that I've submitted here. So this was a bit out of the regular stuff that we were doing, but yeah, that should be fine for like 1 or 2 episodes. And by now it's over. I'm kind of doing just some fun ideas that I still had and that I want to add to the game. Recently it's been quite busy for me. As you can see, I have a camera again. Woo! Which means I'm also back in my old place in Germany. So moving back from Japan to Germany, like on the 28th or 29th, we finally arrived. It's been a week, but jet lag is already defeated. The arch enemy, everybody who's doing distance traveling. So that's really good. We had some beautiful weather here in Germany recently. I think that the warmest New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, since the beginning of data, weather data collection, which is something, which means we don't know whether it might have actually been the global maximum over time. Anyway, so the big topic of the Godot World Jam. So this time, I think we're doing some more game development here. Next time we will probably be back in the web development world or in the AWS world. I'm not quite sure exactly where I want to head, but one of those two. For now, kind of, because I didn't have the time, or I didn't take the time. I didn't take the time to prepare properly for the stream today. So we're just going to continue here with what we've started. So the big topic of the this is actually a link. That's why it's reloading all the time whenever I click it. The big topic of the jam, which is a monthly jam, by the way. So if you are doing Godot development, you might want to check it out. It's only for Godot users, by the way. Kind of improve, advertise the platform, I think. That's what the jam is all about. Big topic was ghosts. We had 3 kind of additional topics that competitors were able to choose from. So you could have like not taken any of these, could take 1, 2, or all 3 of them. For me, it was basically take it easy. So have multiple difficulty levels in your game and guiding light, find your way in the dark. The game that resulted, let's take a quick look here, is sleep tight, dear child. Sleep tight, dear. And we can just start the game. And what you will see is, actually I can make this short is dark, better light, but unfortunately the one thing that I noticed when I'm increasing the aspect ratio doesn't change the zoom. It actually cuts off the lighting, which is probably part of the engine, because I suppose this has a fixed size. It tries to squeeze it in, the text with a fixed size, it tries to squeeze it into the box, which has a fixed size, which makes it cut some letters. Which doesn't happen, by the way, if I do this. Interestingly. It's weird. What do we learn from this? Reactive development is hard. So short is dark, better light a torch, so that my children, which you can see here on the left side, don't get nightmares. Let's say I put my torch right there. We did make it slightly brighter last time on stream, and we also added some better but still dark. A lantern lights a larger area but less brightly than a torch, but shines less bright. Press Q and E to switch between these nice little things. So the blue one is the selected one. Then place with F. Let's see, we put it right here maybe. Evil spirits hate the light. And talk about evil spirits, there they are. So this game is a mixture of a platformer with jump and run elements. Oh, it doesn't really. Yeah, I am. Angular developer, welcome back. Good to see you. How are you doing? Happy New Year to you. I currently don't have the monies to buy anything, but we can still use the torch that I'm actually carrying, do some damage to these enemies. And we have to do that actually. The game jam is over and the results are actually also out. Come on, die please. Come on, please die. Wave eradicated ahead of time, receive 15 gold. Press N to immediately call the next one. In fact, if I make this larger, some stuff gets cut off, unfortunately. Yeah. How have you been doing? How did you spend your New Year's Eve? And New Year's Day? Did you have a good start? Yeah, so that's the basic game. What will happen is that we have like, I think 6 waves or 5 waves currently. The next wave will be one that introduces portals into the game, which then just keep spawning enemies, and then you have to defeat them. And after that, another enemy type, like a tank enemy type. Oh no, we died after 3 minutes and 30. That's the basic game. Spend it with friends. Ah, that's nice. That's nice. Guess how I spend it. So, just as a side mark, I did come back from Japan on the 29th after 35 hours of travel. So guess how I spent the night from 31st to... Okay, so that's the basic game. We also have, the jam with you. We have the results, and out of 52 entries, in fact, my game, ranked number 9. Woo! That's actually not too bad. At home in Germany, in fact, I didn't even wake up at 0 o'clock. Apparently it was like terribly loud, but I was just like, at 10 o'clock I was, I'm a bit tired. 5. Okay, yeah, go ahead. you probably wake up at 12 o'clock anyway. And I was like, okay. And then it was 9 o'clock in the morning. The next time I woke up. Apparently she watched the fireworks. Even she even tried to wake me up, but it didn't work. Yeah, so ranked 9th, in particular ranked number 3 in accessibility, which is one thing that we tried to do a bit more on the channel, in particular for the link 3/. For our Android app which we developed, the Daily Questions app, where we spent a lot of time actually making this one pretty much compatible completely using for visually impaired people. So pretty much everything here gets read out for you. Can navigate it completely without looking by just using the assistant. The one thing that is not accessible, or obviously accessible, is the statistics part. There is pretty much no way to tell how this data looks like in a reasonable form. So we spent a lot of time on accessibility there, and apparently this has helped because we ranked number 3 in accessibility. In particular, the game is completely key rebindable. You can set if you're not as good or as quickly, you can like reduce enemy health, enemy speed. I could have also reduced the game speed in general, but I didn't at the end. Completely key rebindable. If you have problems looking due to the darkness, you can actually completely switch off the darkness, and then it's like this, which is kind of destroys the game in and of itself, because darkness is the big part of the game. But it makes it accessible to people who have more issues. Probably they probably wouldn't even set it to 99, but more like something like 8, which is at least better in terms of how visible it is. It also it shows everything in terms of maybe it's not visible on stream, but at least for me on my screen, you can see the outlines of the platforms here, which helps with playing the game. And all of that, mostly the options and also volume and stuff, the regular stuff. Although I spent quite a lot of time on the volume. That helped us rank number 3 on accessibility, which definitely helped with ranking 9th. You want to build a web agency? Oh, I don't know if it's viable or not. What do you think? There is opportunity, most likely, but it is also a time when, let's say, like, so I'm currently looking also for a job, a new one, taking in a new project. I work as a freelancer. One of the recruiters that I'm working with, he is focused mainly on startups, and according to him, at least, due to the not financial crisis, but the general energy crisis, as well as accompanying inflation and whatnot, in general, is it already a recession? In Japan, it's obviously a recession. I didn't quite look at it here, but it is probably a recession. I actually got, when I came back, the 2 nice things that I actually were in my letterbox were A, your rent was increased, B, you pay double the price for each kilowatt hour. Double. Ouch. Of electricity. So those were the two nice things, and I suppose that definitely for many startups and things, yeah, gas is extremely expensive, and because gas is considered green, yay. Our nice European people, or the government actually relied too much on gas, obviously. And yeah, but anyway, food also being much more expensive indeed. Yeah, probably price increases of 20 to 30% partially. The good thing is, so I started, recently being like in the last year, I read a lot about climate warming and climate crisis and whatnot. And the good thing, so in according with that, I actually started buying biologically, like, more clean food, and not the most cheapest one. Hoping to tackle, because it actually, to a degree, it correlates with the price of your food correlates with how destructive it is to the environment, and supporting more agriculturally long-term feasible stuff helps with the climate. And due to that, I started buying bio products, or like ecologically friendly products. The good thing is, so and back in the day, like half a year ago, it was like, oh, okay, pay the extra 20 to 50%. But now, because everything got more expensive, actually the biologically friendly product only cost like 3 to 5% more than the regular product, which is good in a sense. Not saying that any of the accompanying other things are good, but seeing a shift towards more economically friendly stuff is definitely something that we do need. And in that sense, at least it has some positive things to it, being as expensive as it is, I guess. Not saying that many people will have a lot of problems, and there need to be solutions coming from now on. I mean, we are developers. For us, it's probably less of a problem, right? Being more probably in the upper part of income. So you and me, we probably won't have problems, but other people who don't earn as much but still are very, very important people to the society, right? They will struggle. And I hope things get better soon. In particular, the war. Hopefully, though, it ends soon and in peace. All right. Yeah, wishes for 2023 in particular. All right. Coming back. So we did a lot of accessibility. By the way, next week I will probably get back into web development. If you have anything that you would like to see, please give me a shout out. Then I know one person who owns a fast food snack bar and works 70 hours a week. And then only 2,000. 70 hours, it's probably not worth destroying your health like that. 70 hours is just ridiculously destroying your health. At least she or he is an owner. He. Yeah, as entrepreneurs, people work a lot. We had one entrepreneur was from South Africa, if I remember correctly. He gets at least according to him, he gets hospitalized like several times due to kind of burnout. But being an entrepreneur, it also helps him while destroying his health. It also is his life, which is okay. But well, it's his values, right? And actually, I kind of understand where he's coming from. Spending a lot of time in front of the PC as well, and unfortunately, not only gaming but also developing a lot, which I like, which I love. But it does take its toll on health in particular, I suppose, if you're not careful. Yeah, so not sure what we are going to do today. Next week, as I said, I want to get back into more web development or AWS stuff. Particular now that I'm back in Germany, it's much easier. As you can see, I have a second screen which I'm looking at while I'm talking to you. I should be looking at the camera, right? Looking into your soul. Building something with AWS. Yeah, that sounds good. Do you have any particular wishes of what we should be building? One thing that I'm still thinking about. There's a nice app. Which as I said, I'm slightly doing environmentally friendly stuff, and yes, that's my name, which you can also find on Twitch. So it's not as bad. And what I'm doing is actually, and what I wanted to do, but eventually I found this page and they do it for me. I'm sponsoring trees, planting trees, and currently I sponsored 60 trees, like 10 per month a year. This is definitely over the top, which is like the trees that have been planted within these 6 months, and you can see them apparently. There's one here in Rüsp im Sauerland, a cherry tree apparently, and then there's one. I have no idea what's the English name of this tree. A common beech apparently, or the European beech. And I wanted to create an app which basically does this. And then it starts to grow a tree, a forest, as you, for example, save on CO2 by eating more healthy, using less flights and whatnot. And that would be one option that we could do, like have a database, have a login, have a front-end page. And probably also going serverless again, because serverless is good. And then we basically build this, except that you can just add your own stuff. What I'm not sure, the one thing where I was kind of skeptic and where I don't know how to do it, is how to actually draw the trees so that you have a forest essentially. We should also probably even save the positions of all those or the trees. The problem is it depends a lot on your screen size. If it's web-based, right? So it depends a lot on your screen size. If I probably shouldn't do that because I'm doxing myself. This depends a lot on your screen size. So if I just do this, you can see they changed. But if it's a forest and I want this effect of, at least in my first idea, I want the effect of, oh, this tree has been there for a long time and it starts growing and growing and growing, and this one is new, and next time you still see this previous one that has now become slightly larger, and you still see the small one which has grown slightly. And to have that effect, you actually have to have fixed positions. I can use canvas, but working on the canvas directly can be kind of rough. I did talk to a friend. We could make a game out of it. Oh boy. Putting the Godot stuff together with AWS and web development, that would be pretty amazing. I haven't done anything in Godot in 3D, but apparently it's actually pretty good. And then, so we would let's do some planning instead of coding. I don't really have a specific topic here on coding, but that would be pretty amazing. Like Godot plus networking plus web dev plus, is it web dev then? Yeah, probably there's also some web development involved, so that you can actually log in and get your data. Drive.app plus AWS and probably serverless. Oops, I copied the colon. New standard for interactive graphics. Ah. Oh, wow, it's very active. In fact, it is almost as active that some people might hate it and get movement sickness of it. But it is actually a pretty nice animation. It is definitely a pretty nice animation. These ones as well. Sweet. Oh, you're doing the... Oh, I see. It's an animation creator, huh? Ah, it's in design and animation tool. Ah, cool. So a great groundbreaking state machine. I'm intrigued. Runs anywhere with the open source runtime. You don't need to install it. Everything is on the web. Oh, that's cool. That's pretty neat. Can we take a look at it? 0.8 point something. They do not have login with GitHub, but they do have login with Google, which is enough. Apparently that login doesn't work. Okay, I guess we don't take a look at it now. But the animations are pretty good. Yeah, these are skeletal animations, right? Looking at it. Haven't created. There's one skeletal animations. Phaser. What's the tool called? I haven't used it. Spinal. The Spriter. Called Spinal? Spinal. Spine. Phaser.js. Yeah, Spine. That's what it's called. We have very, very similar, like a skeleton underlying, and then you move the individual parts with it. This looks very, very similar. Although are these actually moving? Wait, Anyway, so that would be an option. Another option would be Canvas plus web dev plus AWS. Here we have authentication, auth. So why do we need AWS in this case? Because we have save user data, maybe login. Although recently, some time ago, I used Auth0, and man, it was simple. Together with Next.js. Seriously, authentication cannot be simpler to add. So for those people who are interested, it is amazing. So Next.js being a React framework, essentially. Yeah, Cognito wasn't, since I was using, let me see. Where did I use this? I used it in the weather app that I've developed, weather web page that I developed with Next.js. I think there was a reason why I didn't choose Cognito. I think was I just curious about Auth0, or was there was a reason, but I forgot. Yeah, it's good, but it's expensive. That's true. It is. That's true. Absolutely. Yeah. In the previous project, I started a little, also mostly for learning, a little Twitter application. Cognito doesn't play well with Twitter. Actually, Twitter doesn't play well with anything that is based on OpenID Connect or IDC, unfortunately. That's pretty annoying. It's super annoying. Otherwise, Auth0 and Cognito would have been super simple. Auth0 actually does support Twitter, but only the old version. not the OAuth part, because Twitter's API is weird. It is good, but it's, at least the authentication part is weird. They have like 4 different authentications, similar to Twitch. Twitch also has like a ridiculous amount of different APIs, and all of them use different authentication and authorization services. Although I'm not sure. Maybe it became better. Finite Singularity is the one who knows all of that. Being the developer of Tau, the Twitch API unifier. Shout out to him, by the way. I haven't seen him online, unfortunately, due to the time difference. But I hope he's still streaming. Post-holiday Kerbal Space Program. So apparently holidays, so seems to have been streaming last week. Right? Yeah, 7 years ago. Very good. Maybe he's currently on holiday. Yeah, check him out. He's amazing. And I'm going to join his streams again. Looking forward to that. It's been a while. Anyway, yeah, we could do Auth0 or Cognito, something in that direction, or general user sign up and login. One thing that will not use anymore, I think, is the Amplify. It is not there yet. But most importantly, maybe the application itself is okay, CLI and so on. But the integrations are not there yet either, I feel. They are missing stuff. I don't know. Or you build it completely from scratch, integrating then with the relevant services on AWS. But other than that, at least for mobile, it's completely trash. The documentation is terrible. And they have like 4 different documentations. Anyway, enough hate speech. Sorry, AWS, but sometimes you can be confusing. This is productive feedback. You need AWS, please work on your documentation. All right, anything else we need? So we need user data. So let's maybe the idea. As a user caring about the environment, idea slash the carry audacious go. As a user caring about the environment, which also limits a bit the persona that we're talking about, I want to track my CO2 savings. Not sure about that formulation, because you're actually not saving in a sense, just reducing, or reductions maybe. Reductions. CO2 reductions by planting a virtual forest that is by planting a virtual forest. Does that make sense? First of all, as a very, very general idea. Why am I missing something? How do I... Oh, questions that arise. How... Can you read this? Is this large enough? Maybe that's better. How do I track CO2 reductions? Actually, my original idea was planting trees or sponsoring trees there, and there are a lot of services that do these. For example, this one apparently, yeah, you can just plant 20 trees, or 50 or 150 or 100,000 or 10,000 apparently. So that's an option. And I had my original idea was using one of these services, and then my personal goal is to plant 1,000 trees. Planted. My first goal. It is called the Miro Shiga Senbon Sakura Kanzen Kankyo Kozen, which is the Miro Shiga, which is my kind of old Japanese name. My Japanese name is Miro, and Miro Shiga is basically like a samurai version. 1,000 cherry blossoms environmental protection fund. That's the name that I've given to the project. Change the name to Japanese name. No, I didn't. It's the name that I am always called in officially my name is still Mokokren. But whenever I'm in Japan, or I'm talking to Japanese people, it is very hard for them to pronounce my name. So instead I made it into Miro, which is also a sort of cacao. Yeah. If you know the Nestle cafe, the Nestle cacao, yeah, everybody knows Milo. so when I'm introducing myself to a new Japanese person in Japanese, I'm always like the cacao. And then, oh yeah. I loved it. I always used to drink it when I was little. Yeah. You can actually buy it in Germany as well, I think. Although here we have Kaba. That one. That's the one that I grew up as. There's also Nesquik. Is that the right one? Yeah, that one. The one from Nestle. The Western one. But they are both from Nestle, so... Is Kaba from Nestle? No, it's not. Yeah, that's great. Can you remind me of which country? Kind of room. Right. So my original idea was to just track exactly how many trees I have. Belgium. Okay. I try to remember. So my original ideas was I want to track the number of trees I've sponsored. It's probably easier because that's why I came up. It's a small country. Yeah. I've heard of Belgium. Yeah. They have great waffles. Actually, they sell a lot of Belgian waffles in Japan, and they love it. And also Belgian. Is it Belgian called as an adjective? Yeah, not those actually. Oh, Hector, hey, good to see you again. Happy New Year to you. How is everything going? Thank you for the bits. Thank you for your support. Happy New Year. Cheers on you. Actually, my tea is empty. Happy New Year. We're talking about a kind of new project. Getting more back into web development. In particular, I'm also back in Germany. Yay! So the streaming times are actually back to normal in a sense. And one idea that Angular Dev came up with, one of his ideas was doing more AWS stuff. And there's this one project that I have been thinking about quite a bit, which is basically tracking the number of trees I've planted. So the app I eventually settled on for planting trees to help the environment is planted.green. Shout out to them, I guess, on that front. And they pretty much do exactly what I thought about, pretty much right here. So they track exactly where each tree was planted. For example, here there was a European beech planted. That I've sponsored. And my goal is to plant 1,000 trees, which essentially erases, assuming that the trees halfway survive, which erases essentially the footprint that the CO2 footprint that I'm putting onto the world. So that's why this 1,000 came up, by the way. And I want to have an app that tracks the number of trees I've sponsored until I found the other app, by the way. But now I not make this kind of open for people who also have a similar idea and do not want to use exactly this app, but like sponsor trees in another way, or do anything else for the environment. and then kind of recalculate CO2 for, savings into trees. How have you been doing? How have you spent your Christmas and New Year's, Hector? Do you have a fun time? So that's the basic idea. As a user caring about the environment, I want to track the number of trees I've sponsored. By planting a virtual forest. And ideas that we have to do that. This is the large idea. But it was called, you did? Very good. The one, oh! And nobody's there on Christmas or New Year's to actually fix it. Because everybody's on holiday. Ugh. I hope everything's fixed by now and the damage is limited for you. It's hoping. That's annoying. Hope your insurance covers it. So that's the big idea. One option. So some kind of restrictions that I think about, or constraints. The forest, the trees in the forest should be somewhat recognizable, and not just random assortment. Maybe not in version 1, but maybe in the longer term. We might first draw just a random thing and then improve on top of that. It should be web enabled because everything is on the web. It's just so much easier to use. Ideally, it should be mobile or responsive. But this kind of, at least in the ideas that I've had so far, that we've had so far, goes against this part. I mean, of course, the app that we've saw just now is basically just a list, right? So there's, it is very easy to make that one responsive while still being able to say this is this tree. We won't be able, not necessary, track each position and type, etc. of each planting position, maybe planting position of each tree. That's probably over the top. Should be kind of recognizable, but if you, for example, plant something with, what did we see here? This here, we will probably not see each and every tree. By the way, I have no idea what this app exactly is. Do not trust it immediately, but do some research. But here we will probably not see the correct position of your tree, of the tree that you've sponsored, or maybe not even the type that you've sponsored. The kind of tree. Not necessary to track each planting position of each tree. Planting position or kind of each tree. That's probably too much. But other than that, it would be nice to have like a map or like a forest where things start to grow as you increase the number of trees. Might need to be scrollable. In a sense that it's scalable. You should be forest should be scalable. And therefore probably we should be able to scroll through things. Yeah. So with these constraints, some ideas that we've had so far is writing directly on the canvas, drawing to the canvas, which is a piece of HTML, a part of the browser actually, or a piece of the HTML5 thingy. You can just draw stuff on the canvas. Canvas HTML. Yeah, for example, here it just draws lines directly on the canvas. Does it actually draw something? It doesn't, right? Oh. Not useful. Yeah, for example, you can, using JavaScript, you get the canvas element, which you have just as an HTML tag, and then you say, well, give me a context, set the origin, and then draw a line from here to there, and then also add actual stroke width to it, so that it's actually visible. And then you have drawn a line, and with that we could start drawing trees in specific positions on this map, on this canvas. So that's definitely an option. You can also, I think, add images and whatnot. Phaser would be an option actually. Phaser 3. Under the hood, it uses the canvas. Phaser being a game development engine or game engine for HTML5. Somewhat lower level, in that you don't really have an editor and so on. But in this case, that's perfectly fine, I think. We could do something like Godot, maybe even 3D. Which would also be interesting, but probably slightly out of scope. And then Godot, which is a game engine, which this little game is written in, if you want to check it out. That's my game, that's the entry that I've done in December for Game Jam. And it runs in the browser. It is, however, responsiveness is not actually a given, to be fair. So that one would probably not run on mobile, at least not without further work. But Godot you can just compile directly into the browser. Although I've noticed whenever, at least in the browsers that I'm using on Ubuntu, whenever I was trying to make it into full screen, it actually crashed the complete WebGL, which is like, okay, yeah, not very good. So there are some limits here. Limited compatibility, limited responsiveness from what I've seen so far. Other than that, we want people to be able to log in. So we kind of need some version of authentication. And we need some place where we save the data. And one of the obvious ones is AWS Cognito, the authentication and authorization, or one of the authorization and authentication services from AWS for unknown users, or like users in the wild, not your developers and so on, actual end users. There are a lot of identity providers that we could use. AWS Cognito is definitely one, since we were talking about AWS. And corresponding to that, it would probably also be some level of web development involved. Other things than that, how do we do this? Drawing the forest is the hardest. Canvas. Canvas has a couple of benefits compared to Phaser. No, it doesn't. Never mind. Phaser is probably the better version of Canvas, working directly on the canvas. Phaser would be probably the better version. Can you draw images to the canvas directly? PNG to canvas. Drawing PNG to canvas. Apparently it works. Draw image, yeah, perfectly. So it is definitely an option. We just need a general image of some tree, or we draw one. A very Christmas tree. the simplest one that you can actually imagine. Then we save the data, so we need some form of database, because multiple users can actually, I think of making it publicly available. Constraints, publicly available on the web. Actually, it's already web available. Publicly available. Anyone can sign up and use. What else? Yeah. So any additions that you think would be important, or any ideas of, maybe you already have an idea of how to implement all of this. There are a lot of solutions to the problem, right? There always are. So it's nice to also hear some other ideas. This is the basic idea. As a user caring about the environment, I want to track the number of trees I've sponsored by planting a virtual forest. So you sponsor actual trees, and so that's the value, an important part that I've almost forgot. Why does the user want this? So that I stay motivated for climate action. Yeah. Or further. So seeing the stuff actually grow and knowing that you get, what was it, Peter Drucker? What gets measured gets good. Apparently, I think maybe he didn't even say it, but people kind of attributed it to him. But anyway, so having this kind of measurement and visualization of the trees you've planted, even if you cannot track them directly, like I am able in this planted at green. Having this visualization helps to stay motivated and stay focused on, yes, it's worth it, and not just kind of having the feeling of churning money onto something that you do not really see or feel. So making it much more tangible to do climate action. That's the basic premise here. Make climate action tangible. That's the basic premise that we have. And this is basically the user story in a sense. Actually, it's not that's not a Hikari. It's actually an epic, probably. Project goal, in a sense. Value proposition. Any agile coaches here? I hope I'm using the term right. As far as I understand it, that should be about right. A bit. So maybe a implementation ideas. Yeah, we're doing some planning today. I could also be working on the game itself, but I also don't really have a specific point that I want to work on. So we're doing some planning here. So next time can actually get started. So implementation ideas. First of all, implementation guidelines, prototype. That's the guideline number one that I would add. And then we can try different solutions, maybe even. Here's an idea. Here's an idea. So the question is, how do we get to this the quickest way possible? How do we get to this the quickest way possible, taking in mind this goal, right? That's essentially what we should be doing. The minimum viable product that does fulfill this value proposition, giving value to the user, while also fulfilling, while also being very, very small and reasonably scoped. So let's see. Then again, we also want to learn, right? So we might do 1 or 2 editions here and there, most likely, just to have some fun also. Actually, I want to remove all of these, and currently we do planning, project planning, make climate action visible. I call it tangible, right? Visible is probably more. Make my climate action visible. Visible. Tangible sounds more like you actually find a way to do something. Finding the way to do something is probably still on you. What I want is to make it visible. make my climate action. So, implementation idea 1. Let's see. We go for a table. Table of user can insert how many trees planted, additionally planted. Data gets saved. User is authenticated, identified. So that multiple users can actually use this. Inserted data gets saved. When opening app again, data is loaded. What else do we have? Basically, this is a form. The trees saved. These get loaded. Trees get shown on page. So that's the very first one, as a table, which essentially puts us onto pretty much in the position of this, except we do not really track them. Right? Then the list just grows and grows and grows and grows. That's the very simplest solution that I can come up with right now. So could also be an app, but I do want to make it web enabled, I think. Mostly due to screen space, to be mostly due to the screen space that you have on desktop. Responsiveness. That one makes it complicated. That one makes it so much more complicated. And this kind of the self-imposed necessity to also be able to make it look good on mobile. So from here, and then improvement one is, so most importantly actually, and insert how many trees additionally planted, insert number gets saved. In fact, the simplest one is in the browser. Then we don't need this. If we do it locally, first of all, so it's not really web enabled, basically just a local app that you're running as a website. Browser storage. But it provides us with the value while giving us requiring zero architecture from us, which is good. is the, and again, so this is the MVP, then MVP2. And yes, there can be multiple minimum valuable products, MVP. There can be multiple minimum viable products. In fact, you can do it for feature-wise. Users authenticated. No, here. So this basically gives us everything we need, right? As long as you stay in the same browser, you get your trees and your climate action is visible. It is that simple, huh? In the very first version. Then things get more complicated. Because here we start getting architectural stuff. So the requirement here being, this one is a local first in the current browser. This one is cloud storage, essentially. Sync to cloud. To add syncing to the cloud, well, we still have to save stuff in the cloud. It's the new part. We, however, have to somehow tell what data belongs to what person. And well, there are a couple of solutions. The probably most correct one would be to actually have authentication. We could do like token-based stuff, and then with just saving the token, and as long as you have the right token. Oh no, that actually doesn't work. Never mind. Because then you still have to have the... Oh no, it does work. It does work, right? Maybe we could go a different route. How about this? No, it's not secure. So what I was thinking about is in version 2, instead of going the complete authentication route, we just generate a long-lived token for the user. But long-lived is actually already like not great. Then again, this is not personally identifiable data. Most of it, nothing of it. You essentially just save the number in the cloud, right? How many trees you've planted. Yeah, that's not really any data that is worth protecting. So what we could do is we generate a long-lived token for the user on the back end. We save the token, and this is essentially acts as our authentication. The question then becomes is, how does the user save this token? And we could just send it via email. Fortunately, we then have emails. Emails are always really identifiable. But that's okay. I guess that's okay. At least for a Twitch stream project, that's okay. I don't think we need to get into the legal stuff too deep. We save the token, send the token to the user via email, and user uses the email to token link, uses the email link to access her data first. That's an option. We get around all the authentications, which is in a sense nice. On the other hand, probably not what we want in the long term, but it is an option. So that's why I'm adding it. But this is an alternative to authentication, or at least actually a complete authentication mechanism. Not a very safe one, but essentially it's an API key, a long-lived token, aka API key. If you want, so it's essentially an API key. Probably the better version of doing authentication is using something like Next.js and then Auth0 or Nito or Microsoft Active Directory identities, is it right? AD identities, external identities, that's it. That's Cognito for Microsoft Azure. So what I probably prefer in terms of implementation, this is part already of the implementation. What I probably prefer is user framework like Next.js, and then use Cognito or Auth0. Due to the simplicity of Auth0 would be pretty nice. Keycloak, we could also use Keycloak, and then deploy it in the cloud using AWS. Another option, which, so remember, one of our requirements is learning more or doing more AWS stuff. Build something with AWS. So Auth0 would be completely out of AWS, although Auth0 actually, I think they use AWS under the hood, do they? Or is it I think they are using Azure, I think, under the hood. Yeah, something like that for authentication. And then the simplest one being serverless API for setting the number. We're going serverless API for AWS Lambda. Cognito would be a very good fit because there's an there's a direct integration between AWS Lambda and Cognito. So have you used it, AngularDiff? Lambda Cognito authorizer. Basically, I think you provide your, let me see, the access token probably, not the identity one, and then it immediately, so you send a request to Lambda, to API Gateway. The API Gateway checks with AWS Cognito whether the token that you've sent in a header probably is valid, and then it immediately provides, okay, you're not authenticated or you're not authorized and whatnot, or you get passed through to the Lambda function or step function or whatever, which is really neat. Yeah. Here we go, Cognito, huh? I haven't used Cognito in a while, unfortunately. It's there will be some rough edges. Just like but yeah, probably we go with this one, and then if using Cognito, consider the API, AWS API gateway to Cognito. That would be an obvious choice. AWS. Anybody of the AWS, anybody who has used Cognito recently, they did some changes to or some improvements, I think, to the hosted authentication, right? Anybody who can tell me something about that? I think if we do use the hosted authentication, comes with Cognito, we need a backend, right? Because we're doing. Do we? Wait, what? No, we. Might get around with the. We might get around with not implicit flow, but the improved version of the implicit flow. Yeah, I'm thinking currently about how the front end actually integrates with Cognito, because there's Cognito being an OAuth 2 ID provider, or at least a OpenID Connect ID provider. We need to somehow do a proper OAuth 2 authentication flow with it, if I remember correctly. Or maybe one of the SDKs does it for us. I would need to look that up again. That sounds promising, at least. Yeah, I think we go that route probably. And then we have a serverless API. And we have authentication, and that's it for Cloud Sync, I think. What else do we need? What else do we need? that it? We have responsive, web enabled. Our trees in the forest should be somewhat recognizable. So not only the number of trees and generate, and for each tree generate, actually that should be part of MVP2, recognizable trees. Each tree stays in a specific position. Auto-generated. So implementation-wise, this is auto-generate cohorts for each tree and save them. Save plus load. Play. Yeah, display could be part of. Never mind. If MVP2 is recognizable trees, we need to add it here. Load them in the actually I already have that ready. Or do we, yeah, what are we working on? This is the 1,000 trees project. All right. And that puts us in the position that we have a tree, we have a forest, we have recognizable trees, they stay in the same position. We can change the number of trees, we can add new trees, we can sync to the cloud, and load from the cloud. Actually, it's not sync, but saved. There's syncing to be done if people use multiple devices, but I think we can ignore that. I think we can ignore that. So implementation wise, I think about the following. We do a Next.js app plus because I have everything set up, so we can get right into it essentially. Next.js plus Chakra UI. We can get right into it, which makes it very, very simple for us. And yeah, since it's only a table, that's very, very simple. Each tree. Oh, they stay. Oh, here it is a table, right? Each tree stays in a specific position. We do not draw it as a. We do not draw it as a forested. Actually, I want to do there preparation. Because it's super simple. These are like a couple of more lines. There's not. It is kind of scope creep, but it's so simple scope creep. I think it's fine. So these are the coordinates then get automatically generated for each tree, but they are not being used. And instead, we do a MVP 3 forest visual forest raw forest. And here what I want is we actually show a forest. Raw to canvas. Implementation wise, probably instead of directly drawing to the canvas, so the problem that I have with drawing to the canvas is that it can be fairly, or at least I can imagine that scrolling on the canvas can be hard to implement. Scrolling on canvas. That's not what I want. What I want is essentially that you can... Oh, this is what I want. Drag of the state. So the source code. Oh, it's small. Oh, but it's using Conva.js. Okay. What is Conva.js? 5 2D canvas.js library. Sweet, dude. Both for desktop and mobile. Animations and tweens if we want to add anything like that. That's pretty neat. Does it work with images? It doesn't say images. That's pretty neat. JS images. It also has a React integration, very nice. Sweet. Sweet. Anybody used Canva before? Are these images? Yeah, these are. Okay, perfect. Sweet. I think we found our winner. We might. Right. Maybe. That makes it very, very much simpler compared to Phaser. Phaser comes with a lot of stuff. So if we go to bundle phobia and we look for cornbar.js, come on. This is 152, assuming that's the right one. And while phaser, oops, that's phaser is 1 megabyte, which is huge. So load times are terrible whenever you include phaser. At least this one is 10 times smaller. 5 times smaller, 6 times in terms of minified and gzipped. So that's good. And it's also way more focused apparently. Wait, let's try. Very good, very good, very good. We're getting there. Oh. Station, maybe on canvas. Compa.js. Cool. What's from there? What else do we? Anything in particular that you would like to see? In particular on AWS. Currently it's very, very, in a sense, simple. We would be using Finito for authentication and user sign up and so on. We would be using API Gateway and AWS Lambda, as well as probably DynamoDB, because this is the perfect use case for DynamoDB. Everything is just right under the user, and we just save the data. Unless how much? There's a size limit to DynamoDB. Limit size of, I think, 400 kilobytes. So if you plan 1000 trees, each one having X position, something like zip, and a Y position, maybe, yeah. So what I'm thinking about is or what I'm slightly worried about is the size limit. The data model that I'm thinking about is you just have the user, the schema, the user as the key, primary key essentially. How do they call it? Hash key. The user ID, i.e. the OpenID subject. And inside of there you have the trees, essentially, which is an array, and for each tree it is a tuple of these two values, right? Something is wrong. Adjacent. So that's the simplest one that I can think of in terms of designing the data limit. What is because this one is not an object. Each tree has an X position and a Y position. So what happens now, however, if you have like 1000 trees, right? So we're at 250 right now. 400. This. And now we have 1,000 trees. About 1,000. So how many kb is my text? $54 kilobytes. So for a person who plants 8,000 trees, we reach the limit. For a person who plants 8,000 trees, we reach the limit. And 8,000 is not that much. It's 8,000 euro, yes. And depending on what you use, maybe more. Maybe more money. About the cheapest one is probably 8,000 euro, unless you plant them yourself. That's not 8,000 trees. Is that much? I mean, it does work for now, right? We really reach that limit and think again. There are other options to save this. We could actually make each tree its own entry. Then we will never reach the size limit. The data model would change a bit. If you haven't used DynamoDB, check out one table. It makes it so much. At least if you want to go, not that one. Yes, this one. At least if you want to go the real, the non-SQL oriented DynamoDB way, it's a great tool. There's this concept called single table design. Maybe you've used it. But manually it's really hard, and this one helps. It's basically an ORM for DynamoDB, making it much simpler to have one big table in which you have all your data, and then you can query it together. It might have its issues, but making a Lord of the Rings reference at the very beginning already got me hooked. I've used it in, I think, the Twitter thing that I've built. Anyway, I don't think I did it on stream, but this is pretty cool. Nice tool. There are like 1-2 gimmicks that you have to be aware of, but what you essentially do is you define your schema. You then have to have a schema, unfortunately, but from then on it's very, very simple to actually get all accounts and all users with that account together and so on, while everything is within one single DynamoDB, so you do everything in one single query, making the best out of speed. Yep. Then again, single table design is really, really hard, to be honest. This makes it much simpler. Single table. Have you heard of it? Single table design. It is basically a workaround for AWS specifically. to be perfectly frank, Alex Debris is a great reason. So why use it, and not basically have multiple tables for multiple entities? because then you essentially use SQL, or you use DynamoDB, which is a non-SQL database, NoSQL, in a SQL way, which kind of defeats the purpose using it anyway. And that's where the single table, so you do everything in one single request. So that is very, very fast. You get the, oh no, the complete speed benefits out of DynamoDB. But it's hard, I have to say. If you wrote something just now, I might not have seen it because I accidentally closed the wrong window. In any event, 6,000 trees, huh? I guess it. Yeah, if we minify JSON online, that didn't work. That helps only little, actually. It helps only little. Yeah, it's still in the same order of magnitude, as you can see. Then again, the numbers might not be as bad. I guess it should be fine. Let's go with a simple route, DynamoDB. So that would be API gateway authenticating against Cognito. So the way a request would then go is user sends to AWS API gateway, sends to Cognito token validation. Cognito tells API gateway, yes, this token is valid. JWT validation. Cognito tells API gateway, yeah, everything is cool. Then API gateway sends it back. How do I draw this? API gateway sends it then to Lambda, and Lambda probably saves it to DynamoDB. There's actually a way we could skip this. If we don't need it, we might be able to skip Lambda and instead directly talk from API gateway to DynamoDB using a service integration. Maybe skip Lambda by using a API gateway servers integration directly to DynamoDB. The benefit is we do not pay Lambda. It's cool. The not so great part is it can be fiddly. Writing a service integration can be very, very fiddly. If you remember, do I still have this here? The Top 30 questions. That one? Sorry, that one, huh? I think we did write a service integration here. Yeah. No, that's the model. API gateway method here. Would you look at that? You have a request template, and you put this weird VLC template inside of there, and then you have an integration response and blah 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 and whatnot. Is this actually doing? Yeah, this is actually doing a service integration. But it, as you can see, it is kind of hard to read. and it's even worse to write it. We probably spent a whole day on trying to get this one right, or the other one, this one maybe. We have a couple of these, and none of them were easy to debug. It's like completely impossible to debug any of this. So that's why service integrations are kind of I think they are, if I remember correctly, in one of the serverless office hours, they are aware of the problem, and they might have also launched something. I haven't looked at the I haven't looked at the news recently, to be perfectly frank, in the last 3 months. Where are the news? The website changed, didn't it? Logs, maybe? Wasn't there a news page here? News? No. They changed the page. Oh, that's unfortunate. At least the patterns are still there. Video office. Yeah, they had a very, very nice event-driven architecture. A very, very nice what is new on AWS page. And in particular in server. I think it was mostly about serverless on here. Unfortunately, they don't have it anymore, apparently. That's too bad. Well, still a resource worth checking out. First and foremost is this pattern library is amazing. You want to know how to integrate API Gateway HTTP APIs with Amazon Event Bridge? No problem. Here you go. That's how you do it in, is it Terraform? No, it's serverless. Okay. Serverless. And so on. All right. So, coming back. This one. We will probably not do that. This would be the flow, and then it goes back to API gateway and then back to the user. Then finally the response. Then drawing the forest, and then we're good. So this is kind of the except for the Cognito JWT validation, user to API gateway to Lambda to DynamoDB is like the most basic serverless setup on AWS that you can have, I think. At least, to me, it seems that way. All right. Are we good? I think this is what we are going to start next time. So setting up, probably copy and pasting the Next.js and Chakra UI project that I do already have. And then just making a very, very simple page where we have a table with trees and a form where we can insert the number of new trees. And as of then, yeah, once we have that, we can continue to the AWS stuff. Does that sound like a plan? I think it does. Good job, everybody. Thank you for joining me here in the TypeScript Tea Time. Today was planning day. It's the start of the year, right? So happy new year again, everybody. We have to do some planning. Getting back into the more web developy AWS fun stuff. Recently we've done some game development. In fact. With that, I thank you so much for joining me here in the TypeScript Tea Time. I was your host. I am still your host, Mirko. Thank you for joining. Thank you in particular Thank you, Hector, for joining in. And also to the others who are lurking. Let's see whether we can rate somebody. Coding Garden is on. So let's go to Coding Garden, who's probably doing JavaScript stuff, because that's what he's doing. Oh, it's good to be back in a time zone where I can actually watch Twitch streams. I really gotta say I enjoy being back in a time zone where I can see the European and the US Twitch streams. It was really hard in Japan too. So thank you so much for joining. See you next time in TypeScript Tea Time. Goodbye, everybody. Cheers.